Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey everybody, it's Jared. Welcome to another episode of All Things Crime. Appreciate you watching and listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit that subscription button and shoot us a little review. Hit the bell so that you never miss an episode. Super excited tonight. We got a guest that we had on. We were just discussing about 3 years ago, and his name's Zeek Arkham. He's the original cop with attitude. Has an amazing podcast called Reasonable Suspicion. So you definitely need to go and check that out. Zeek, it's an honor to have you back on the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. Thank you for thinking of me, and thanks for reaching out. Definitely appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'll tell you, like I said, we were, checking out our conversation thread and stuff. And I remember talking to you when you had about, 20 to 30,000 followers on X, and it was still Twitter back then. So since then, I've seen you've just absolutely blown up all over the place, and love following you on X. Some of the conversations that you have are just absolutely hilarious. And especially what is the guy's name? Let's just start this off and just blow right into the political discussions that you have on X. They're absolutely hilarious, man, especially from, a cop's perspective. And what is a Brooklyn dad that you have such
yes.
a great feud with? He is a trip.
You should call him Florida Dad now, because he moved down to Florida with, as much as he hates Ron DeSantis and hates conservatives and hates Republicans, he moved right in the middle of it all. So, that always happens. Pelosi, she bought a house down there in Florida. I know way too many people who like voting Democrat who are moving to Florida. So, listen, you might not like Republican and conservative views, but you certainly like the benefits of Republican and conservative views. So I just think that's hysterical. And he makes it so easy. Every time he posts something stupid, it's just entirely too easy for me to roast him and get him back. So, I mean, I love just retorting his to his posts, and it makes people happy, makes them laugh. So if I can do that and roast them at the same time, great.
Oh yeah. Well, that's just rich. It's I live in Utah, and I've lived in the West most of my life. I grew up in Idaho, and even back then, that was, geez, man, it's going on 40 years ago. Even back then, we were always, hey, if you're from California and you move up here, we have no problem with you. Just don't bring your politics. Don't bring, never, California or Idaho was the phrase that we always had. And now I'm in Utah, and I live 45 miles outside of Salt Lake, so we're definitely in a more conservative area, and we have Californians moving up, but it's all the ones that are just totally sick of all the stupidity that's going on in California. And so we're getting the good ones so far, but I think like I said, even the ones that are all about destroying their own state and having all these crazy policies, they're more than happy to move to another conservative state and then destroy that.
I have never understood that. If you are so happy living in a blue state, in a blue city, then stay. Continue to vote for your blue politicians. New York City, stay. Vote for your Democrat socialists. You made this bed. Go ahead and lie in it. But just remember, with voting for these people also comes, the illegal migrants and the dirtiness and the crime and the woke DAs, the Soros-appointed DAs who seem to want to take the side of the criminals over the side of the victims. Stay. Go ahead. Be comfortable. Enjoy your liberal leftist utopia. Don't come to a red state or to a red city and start screwing things up. Start voting for the same people you ran away from. That's why I think it's so hysterical, but it's hypocritical that Brooklyn dad, Florida dad now, Florida crackhead. Um, I think it's so hysterical that he would move to the reddest of red states, Florida, under Ron DeSantis, who he did nothing but make fun of. Like I don't, to me that says that deep down inside, conservative policies work, right wing policies work, because you could have moved to California, you could have moved to Pennsylvania, you could have moved to Illinois. If you want the heat, you could have moved to I don't know, Virginia, Kentucky, one of those places. You could have moved any place else but Florida. You could have moved to Georgia. Georgia looks like it's slowly turning red. Georgia's just about purple now. But
Well,
you could have moved to Georgia. Yeah, you could
yeah.
have moved to Atlanta, But no, you moved to Florida. So I just think it's hysterical. Even though there are certain parts of Florida that are blue, Orlando's pretty blue, things like that. But you moved to a red state. So that just tells me where the truth lies in all of this. Honestly, if I were in charge and I had to say, I would have a big wall up in Florida and Texas, and I need to see your voting record before we let you win. You can come and visit, but after a week or so, we're going to throw you right back out. You can go right back to your liberal utopia. That's how I would do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, the utopia, my understanding is the last count that I heard was New York was going to pay somewhere around $12 billion for all the, I guess that's the cost of being a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. I don't know if that's the number. Actually, that's just New York City, isn't it? So 12 billion.
So.
Yeah, for just New York City. So sanctuary city status there. All of a sudden they get all these, illegals coming in and my understanding is they're everywhere. I mean, every time I talk to an NYPD guy, he's just saying it's out of control. Have you been in the city lately?
I avoid the city like a plague. I stay as far away from it as I can. This is a $12 billion lesson in stubbornness. That's what this is. Because everybody's going, this is horrible. This is so bad. But we're going to stay a sanctuary city. I mean, it would be like, you have a bunch of garbage in your house. And I'm not calling these people garbage. I'm just saying you have a bunch of garbage in your house and it stinks. But you refuse to take the garbage out. You refuse to clean your house because you think you're making some sort of point. And, to me, it's just a tragedy because we've got homeless veterans all across this country. We've got homeless veterans in New York. We've got, United States citizens who need mental help. We've got United States citizens who need housing. The whole liberal utopia, housing is a right. It's not a right, but we could help people out who need help with housing. But instead, all of that, the debit cards that they're giving to these illegals, all of that is going towards illegal people who are breaking the law just by being in this country because they're not doing it the right way. Good on Texas for deciding, hey, you know what? All these people say they're sanctuary cities. We're going to take them up on it. Good on Texas for doing it because it shouldn't be all of Texas's burden to bear. But at what point does it start really costing the country and United States citizens as a whole? That's the biggest tragedy out of all of this.
Oh yeah. Well, it's what 2+ million jobs created that created is a loose term, of course, but illegals have basically taken 2 million jobs. How many of those should have gone to U.S. citizens, people that are maybe struggling? And, I don't know exactly know what those type of jobs are, but regardless, if they're here illegally, they're not, they shouldn't be working unless they've applied for a green card and, which most of them haven't. So again, growing up in the West, in the farms out there, there were always, illegals that were there. And, it's sad because a lot of the guys that I knew when I was growing up that were, illegals, most of them Mexicans, fantastic people. I actually, number of times went out there. I was moving pipe with him. I was picking rock. Doing all these farm type stuff. You've never seen people working harder, but it's different now. It's a different breed of people now. A lot of these guys are coming not to necessarily to work, but just because of the draw of the benefits. And, President Biden started this whole thing when he was campaigning. He basically said, we're going to open up the borders and all sorts of these benefits. And you know what? When we were down there in Panama at the Darien Gap with those congressmen, every single one of them was like, yep, Biden's president, we're headed, we're going. And that was just like the green light all over the world. And now we're paying the price.
Well, I think it's important what Trump said when he was on the phone with Elon Musk. He said, you got Venezuela, you got El Salvador, all the other Latin American countries sending their worst. They're emptying out their prisons. That to them, it's like, you know what? If you're going to take them, we're going to send them. And Trump said he doesn't blame them because he'd do the same thing. I mean, at what point is it a bona fide cost to my safety, your safety, the safety of our wives, our daughters, our sons, our mothers? At what point do we have a bona fide safety threat that we need to really start looking at? A threat that could be fixed if we just secured the border. But, we don't have that. We have a president who, I don't even know where he is right now. No one knows where he is right now.
Oh, I think he's out on a beach somewhere in Delaware, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on vacation from his vacation. Like he's checked out. It's like he knows he's going to be out of a job in less than 100 days, and he's checked out. He's done.
Yeah, he.
We have a vice president who is going to fix what she broke. That's exactly what she's campaigning on against herself. Whatever happened in the last 3.5 years had nothing to do with me. But if you elect me, I'm going to fix what I contributed to in the last 3.5 years. That's basically where we are right now. And I'm shocked because we have a portion of this country who, to them, it somehow makes sense to vote for her. They want to be a part of history. They want to vote for the first Black female president of this country. And my thing is, don't vote based on color or gender. Vote based on who the better candidate is. And you can't tell me it's Kamala Harris because she refuses to do a public speaking engagement. She refuses to get out there and answer questions from reporters. Trump, give him credit, is out there. He's out there talking to the National Association of Black Journalists. He's out there talking to the Libertarian Party. He's out there fielding questions from reporters who may or may not like him. The man's going out there and giving it his all. Meanwhile, Kamala is hiding God knows where. She's hiding back at the White House. Or she's doing these very scripted videos where she's coming out of a record store and, these were my favorite albums growing up. Well, if they were your favorite albums, why don't you have them already? But she's got to show that she's got to lie about her past in order to humanize herself. Recently she said, I worked at McDonald's like everybody else. Oh yeah, Kamala, which one? What was the address?
Oh, right.
Where was it? What city?
Her parents, she grew up in Berkeley. Her parents were professors at Berkeley. I'm pretty sure she never worked at a McDonald's.
Well, I mean, but she says that she lies over and over again to humanize herself. I was smoking weed in college while listening to Snoop Dogg and Tupac, or Tupac and Biggie. I was smoking weed, and then, but also like Tulsi Gabbard said, locked up a bunch of men for smoking weed. For the same crime that she laughed about saying she was doing in college. Or her family celebrates Kwanzaa, or she was bused to school, or whatever lie she's told. And she repeats it over and over again. Or freedom. That's my personal favorite. The freedom story. She lies over and over again to try to humanize herself. And she's coming across even more disingenuous than Hillary is. So, like I said, you got people who it makes sense for them somehow to vote for her. And the idea of a Kamala Harris presidency scares the hell out of me.
Well, yeah, especially I've heard she said, number one, and this is just recently that I saw, um, she wants to take school resource officers out of schools. And I mean, I got a military background. I know, you've been in law enforcement for what, 15, 17 years now, something like that.
18.
Um, so based on that, how important do you think an officer in the schools is? It's like, to me, why make a soft target even more soft and vulnerable, especially when you're talking about kids? It's like the kids should be the most secure. I think kids should be more secure than politicians. How about that?
I agree. But I've always said the thing about leftist Democrat politicians is they'll burn their entire house down so that they can outlaw matches. They couldn't care less. What they want to do is say, you know what? God forbid the next school shooting happens. They can say, you know what? We blame this on the guns. And so now they can further their agenda to try to shut down the Second Amendment. That's what it is. Having an armed school resource officer at the schools could do more to dissuade a potential mass shooter from walking into the school. If that potential mass shooter sees a cop, a school resource officer at the school, maybe he'll say, you know what, not today. Maybe he'll put the gun down. Who knows? Or maybe he'll try, and the school resource officer will put him down immediately, as he should. Who knows? But if you want to eliminate that potential savior from protecting those children, just so you can say it's the guns, we need to get rid of the guns, we need to outlaw this, we need to outlaw that, and then try to circumvent the Supreme Court in the Constitution, because they've already said they don't care about the Constitution, so they can do all this just to get at the guns. Kamala's already said she's for gun confiscation. That's their main thing. And my thing is,
it's not a confiscation; it's a mandatory buyback. That's different, right?
Mandatory buyback, confiscation, same thing. What's the end result? They want your guns. So my thing is, if you're willing to do all this, if you're willing to disarm a general public, my question is, for what? Why don't you want us armed? Why do you want us lazy? Why do you want us out of shape? For what? Does it make it easier to rule? Because we see what happens in England, in Australia, where they don't have guns. Is that your main goal? So, I'm always looking at the cause behind the effect, and that's why I keep saying a Kamala Harris presidency is very dangerous, and I wish more people would wake up to it.
Yeah, well, and also just to kind of belabor that, that Tennessee, the trans shooter that went in and shot up that Christian school, specifically targeted that because they didn't have a school resource officer. And to me, it's like, I've never met the school resource officer in my kids' school, but I know my boys they love him because this guy is just, he'll help them, beat their push-up record. And, he just represents law enforcement so well to them that they have nothing but praise to say about him. And I don't even think they recognize that he's actually there for their safety as well. But to me, it's just insane when you're talking, you have enough people out here that have mental health issues and all sorts of identity crisis and things like that. And then if they know that there's nothing in between them and being able to injure or kill the most vulnerable amongst us and the most precious amongst us, and all they have to do is get through a door, to me, that just doesn't make any sense at all.
My question is, why wouldn't you want more protection for young kids? I say instead, I want a whole squad there. My daughter's 9. I want more. Right now there's only one school resource officer in her school, and it's this old guy who I think is retired from his retired job. By the time he gets up and gets to the door, when I go pick her up, I could run back and forth about 5 times, before he stands up and hobbles his way over to the door. I want a whole squad there. I want about a good 5, 6, 7, 8 school resource officers armed with M4 rifles and everything. Hey, listen, you come in, you try to attack this school. By the time you draw, you're going to have about 15, 16 or so puncture holes in you. That's what I want, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't understand why you wouldn't want more school resource officers for the schools unless you just have this warped view that, you know, oh, we're just going to change the hearts and minds, like Obama said, of these mass shooters. Well, no, you're not, because you're not doing anything for mental health with them. All you're doing is kicking the can down the road. This country has a mental health problem disguised as a gun problem, but it's a mental health problem. Same thing's going on in England right now. Okay, no, they don't have mass shooters, but they had to take plastic butter knives off the menu at some restaurants just because they have a stabbing problem. In Australia, same thing. They have a stabbing problem, and they can force you into COVID camps whenever they feel like it, and they can violate your rights whenever they feel like it. And they've got a problem with their own version of illegal immigrants and mass migrants coming over and wreaking havoc on the town. So, no, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep my guns to protect my family, to protect people from tyranny, and to protect this country, which is what the Second Amendment was written for. So, no, Harris, Beto O'Rourke, anybody else who says, yeah, I'm coming after your guns, you can come after them, but you're not going to be successful.
Well, I live pretty close to a big lake, and all of my guns fell in that lake. I have no idea where they are. So,
same thing. Same thing happened to me. Isn't it crazy how that happens?
yeah, I swear that's probably a pretty common story throughout the country, and especially once you get down into those southern states and Florida, where Brooklyn Dad went. Pretty sure everybody down there has lost all their guns in the rivers and lakes down there too. Alligators ate them. That's what's happened.
Yeah, some deer ran through my backyard, hopped into my shed and just took off, and the guns were just hooked on them. I've never seen those deer ever again. I don't know what happened.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.